You're getting feedback there.
I don't think it was from me. Okay, we're live.
Okay, let's go. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to Sheikhs Breaks, the monthly community event, inshallah, engaging all of you guys out there. We have a great lineup this evening. The topic is humanitarianism, and we will be talking around that topic with our guests, Dr. Asad Khan, our very own Dr. Aisha Bashilani, and our, what was a surprise guest, and now the cat's out of the bag, Dr. Dean, who memorably gave us that great event in Bromley not so long ago. So I'll quickly do some introductions, and we'll get the show on the road. So let me just make Khalik. So I need to make you co-host. Just give me 2 secs. Okay, that's not working, so I'll just carry on for now.
Try again. Sorry, try again now.
Here we go. Okay, so make co-host. Yeah. Okay, guys. So just quickly, some introductions to Dr. Asad Khan. Graduated from dentistry in 2001 from Glasgow University. And just before anyone asks, it's not a conspiracy. I know Aisha's also a dentist. I didn't know that everyone was dentists, but just a coincidence. But Asad has owned his own dental practice since 2006. Currently works as a general dental practitioner in Glasgow and is married with 4 children. Asad spent 10 years in the management of Glasgow Central Mosque, where he held the roles of volunteer, executive member, general secretary and president. During his tenure, he set up various community projects, including the Poverty Relief Project, which helps approximately 150 local asylum seekers and refugees each week. Asad also ran the Glasgow branch of Friends of Al-Aqsa for 3 years, after which he took groups to visit Palestine each year. After stepping down from his official roles at Glasgow Central Mosque and Friends of Al-Aqsa in 2015, he helped found Dental Aid Network, a Scottish charity which provides dental aid to impoverished and war-torn regions across the globe. Dental Aid Network have sent teams to Kashmir, Palestine, Greece, Jordan, the Gambia and Bangladesh. MashaAllah. So currently he's a trustee of Dental Aid Network, Scottish Friends of Syria, and a coordinator of the Poverty Relief Project. So Assalamu alaikum, Asad.
Wa alaikum assalam.
So I'll just introduce everyone else, Asad, and then we'll get going with the questions. So Dr. Dean. So Kamran is a PhD researcher in sociology and lecturer by profession. Many of you will know him from his previous events. He's the founder of Dr. Dean Youth Solutions, a faith-based youth charity which for over 10 years has helped Muslim children, youth and parents. Dr. Dean is considered a youth expert. He's a grassroots youth worker, professional storyteller, blogger, and motivational speaker. His insightful and inspirational talks and workshops have been delivered to thousands of young people, having earned him a position of advisor and mentor to educational institutions, imams, scholars, community figureheads, as well as TV and radio appearances. He's currently a senior trainer for the Department for Work and Pensions on a national project aimed at reducing family and parental conflict. Assalamu alaikum, Kamran.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thanks for coming.
And that's a terrific profile or background picture as well, Kamran.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and at least, last but not least, our own Dr. Aisha Bashilani. Aisha was born and brought up in Mombasa, Kenya, got married and came to the UK in '96. She studied dentistry at King's College, followed by a postgraduate at the Eastman Dental Institute. She currently works as a dentist in general practice and is a clinical teacher at King's Dental Institute. Aisha organises monthly collections for refugee camps in Syria, in collaboration with One Nation, Muslims in Need, and Aid Appeal charities. A more recent project is providing hot meals once or twice a month to women at Marylebone Women's Shelter. Aisha is also a mother of 4 and on the committee at AEC. So Aisha, you need to pull your socks up, sister. MashaAllah. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Thank you all guests for appearing, and hopefully we'll get more people joining as we go. So Khalik, sorry, I meant to introduce you as well.
Hey, that's okay, man.
Patiently waiting, our tech expert. Khalik, like to introduce yourself?
Hey, assalamu alaikum, guys. This is Khalika. Yeah, it's great to be back again for another great show. Fantastic topic and with some amazing guests. So yeah, welcome back everyone to Sheikhs Breaks.
Excellent. So shall we get started? We can kick off. We've got a framework of questions to base the sort of discussion around. So I'd like to ask all of you, the first question really was, how do we define charity these days? I know it sounds like an obvious question. I mean, personally, I find the whole thing a little confusing at the moment. We seem to be inundated with messages, and it's difficult to know what to do with it all. So Asad, can I fire that at you first of all with your thoughts?
Well, I'll try and answer that the best I can. I think giving from whatever you have, whether it's your time, whether it's money, or whether it's just even your thoughts, giving to someone that you think is deserving of something. Quite often, I think we just kind of fence it into a monetary donation to some charity over the phone or online. But I think that kind of cliche charity starts at home is very true. You can give charity to your neighbor just by helping out with a little deed, so that's from your time, or you can go down to one of the projects like Sister Aisha does and give to these Marylebone Women Association. Give what you can, either give from your wealth or give from your heart.
Thanks for that. So in terms of time, because this is a tough one. We don't seem to have that either. So you think, well, a bit tight money-wise, COVID, lockdown, pandemic, and the economy. But I guess what I'm getting at is sort of the bandwidth for volunteering and how people can sort of give their time.
I think there's no shortage of local projects. I mean, I'm in Glasgow. Glasgow's not that big a city compared to some of the bigger cities down south. And we have numerous projects, working within the constraints of these COVID regulations, whereby you could go along and you could volunteer. If you didn't want to be there in person, there's a lot of charities that need phone volunteers, and you could volunteer with that. But why restrict yourself to working for another charity? It's very, very popular these days to set up your own charity, not necessarily being registered, but you're collecting from your own local friends and family and helping out some local needy families, or perhaps sending it in which comes back home and helping out there as well. So I would struggle to understand why somebody couldn't do charity with their time in this day and age.
No, I completely agree with you, but it doesn't stop us struggling with the masjid, getting people involved. So if anyone out there wants to give up some time and help out with masjid activities, there's plenty to be getting on with, as I said. So Kamran, can I get your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many deserving charities and there's so much going on in the world. And from youth perspective and just generally, I've always found that, we've got that quote, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach him to fish, and he can feed for a lifetime, feed his family for a lifetime. And I think that's where we need to really, because there's such a lack of funds for legacy work. There's literally hundreds of millions of pounds going to humanitarian causes, which should continue and has to continue. But the proportion going to things about our next generation, our youth, in the aspects that we've spoken about before at the event, there's not, investment is not even peanuts. I'm talking about £5,000-10,000 a year to some of these charities compared to tens of millions to others. And there's just no proportion there, no balance. I think so. Legacy work is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. He built great people, not buildings, and that's what led to us being Muslim today, and all the benefits of the legacy of Muhammad ﷺ. So I think that's what I'm going to be talking about, the youth, and how we can look at charity from different angles in terms of investing in humans, investing in people, and that currency.
I think that's a great point, mashallah, because, you know, there's so many areas where, you know, a lot of people think that charity is just about possibly giving some sort of financial benefit. But actually, as you mentioned, the Prophet ﷺ in many aspects talked about building great people or actually giving. And there's been so many times where you can see throughout his life where he often spoke about, you know, giving a smile to your parents or your spouse, or these acts of charities, or making dua as an act of charity. So charity can be deemed in many, many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, the Prophet ﷺ didn't leave the FTSE 500 behind or a hedge fund. He left people, great people. And that's where we're not focusing, or very little work is done on that area, which is the greatest charity, because it's the only one that is continuous. So when you feed somebody, you get the reward. When you guide somebody, and then this is the way I see it. So the youth, when we help them and they live a good life, a pious life, they will do Hajj, they will do their own charity work, and you'll get the reward, for continuous reward for all of that, which is what we don't really think about, unfortunately.
Jazakallah khair. Aisha, how do you feel about the term or the word charity?
Assalamu alaikum. So, mashallah, I think both Brother Asad and Dr. Dean have covered it in different ways, quite broadly. I just feel like, although the Prophet ﷺ did tell us when the right hand gives, the left hand does not need to know. So charity can be a private affair where you would do your nice smiles to your husband or feed your family and do your du'as in private. However, it's very important to recognize that charity can sometimes be organized and visible and involving others. And I think that takes us back to what Dr. Dean was saying about involving the youth. I hope, inshallah, that by sharing what I do with everybody else today will encourage everybody to get involved in charities like the Syria project or the Malibon project, which we are working on at the moment.
Jazakallah khair. And you're doing certainly great work there, Aisha. So the part B to this question, and we could quickly go through this, it doesn't require, was does it need rebranding? Does the term charity kind of instigate a kind of lethargy, or do we think that it's actually nothing to do with the term and we just need to, you know, get on with it? Asad?
I would say that we should possibly look at changing what this idea of charity symbolizes in our heads. I think when I think of charity at this moment in time, I think of somebody from a big charity phoning me up and asking me for a donation. Or I think of someone on stage saying, who's going to donate £10,000? Who's going to donate £10,000? We're not going to have dinner until someone donates £10,000. That's kind of like what I think right now when I think of like charity. So in that sense, yeah, I think you're right. I think, you know, there might be a need for some rebranding of what charity should mean to a Muslim. Where that would come from, Allahu Alam, perhaps ulama, perhaps from the member. Maybe we could take some of the hadith, things that Dr. Dean was talking about, which I love that, like the Prophet ﷺ made great people and not big buildings, something like that, where from the minbar during a khutbah, you could talk about great charity works that the Prophet ﷺ did do and the Sahabas Ajma'in did do, and then relate that to the equivalent in this day and age. Because a lot of times I think we end up hearing stories from the great time, the golden era of Islam, and then people kind of can't put that into the context of today, because at that time there was like a whole different scenario, a whole different circumstance. So I think perhaps something like that could help. But yeah, I think I agree with you. I think possibly a slight rebrand or a different tact when it comes to charity, to avoid what you call charity fatigue. I think that would be a positive step.
Cameron?
Yeah, I mean, charities need to give a vision. They need to, people are very self-centered nowadays, and they want the what's in it for me. And I think what's really key about the way we see charity today, and there is fatigue there for obvious reasons, but from a secular point of view, charity, we know it's proven to make people happier. And just a quick one of the research with a group of students, those that were given, they were all given £20 each, and were told to go and spend it. And those that they came back, and some of them spent it on themselves, others spent it on others. Those that spent it on others felt happier in terms of the metrics of it all. They were happier than those that spent on themselves. So we know charity makes us happy as humans. In terms of actually the word charity or what it means, I think to make it broader, you've got to sell a vision that's real, that's accountable to people. People can see the value of it, not just, I'll give you an example. I mean, sometimes we get there's fundraisers for an event that will happen for 3 hours, something small somewhere around the world, and there's massive fundraising for it, and nobody knows why they're raising so much money for something that may possibly need that much attention rather than other causes. I mean, the point being that people are tired of just hearing charity, and I would think of organizations need to now sell a vision of what it really means to help, not just donate and help, but that buy-in needs to increase. We need to increase the buy-in. Otherwise,
defining.
Can I push you for a word?
Yeah. In terms of what for the buy-in?
Branding.
Emotional investment. There needs to be emotional investment from the donors. So they need to be involved with it. A bit like the World Wildlife Fund. You do it because you care about animals and you understand the cause. But with some of our charities, we don't understand it. It's very generic. We don't really get all of it. And so we're not really invested in it. Another area from the youth point of view is that I had talked with quite some of the larger charities, and they're losing funding now from the newer generation, from our kids, our youth. And they're not interested in all the Islamic charities as much as we are. We generally will donate to any of the big names. They're not so interested, and one of the reasons is they're not fun, they're not engaging, and they're actually particularly interested in one Muslim charity, which I won't give a name, but because they do a lot of fun stuff, and they do, they've really branded themselves as a youth Muslim charity, a very, very big name, but they've done something that the others haven't done. So yeah, charity nowadays, it's going to have to reinvent itself, but it has to be sincere and genuine in all its efforts and accountability. I think that's key.
It's really interesting, actually. Yeah, it's almost like defining it and kind of streamlining it in a manner where it's more understandable, and people can more connect much in a much better way from their more humanistic aspects, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you give £50, where's it gone? God knows. It's gone in a fund. I can't see it. I don't know. And some of that's understandable, but other bits, there may be a bit more.
Sure.
People want more. Yeah.
Sure. Aisha, how about you? What do you think?
Yeah, so same here. I don't think charity should be seen as a commercial enterprise or linked to monetary donations. I think somehow we have tried to link charity to giving loads and loads of money to big causes. Personally, I think rather than diluting that concept, we need to create an understanding of what charity involves, and that there are different types of charities that you could do, one for yourself, some for the community, or even the world at large. It's all about creating that understanding and having a structured approach to what sort of charity you want to go for. But yeah, the concern that we have sometimes is, oh, do I have to donate this much money, or do I have to give this much time? I think we just need to create that understanding amongst the community that it's not all about that. There is other ways of dealing with it.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, would you like to elaborate a little bit more on that point?
Yes, I'll give an example. I'm part of the Croydon community support, and we just received a message. It's a bit emotional for me, but we received a message to say there's a sister with no family around in London, and the doctors had said she had 48 hours to live. She was in a hospice very close to my place, and any sisters, Muslim sisters who were available should go and spend some time with her. And for me, that really struck a chord. SubhanAllah, I got the chance to be with this sister who I had never met or never knew in her last few hours of her life. It's very emotional but it was something when I got the opportunity and I went for it, I felt like I just had to give my time. I didn't have to give anything else. I didn't have to give any money towards it. I didn't have to give any extra effort in there. But what it meant was that understanding that I'm just doing it for the sake of Allah's pleasure, for the sake of a Muslim sister. And it gave me a satisfaction, which I probably wouldn't have had even if I have donated thousands of pounds towards a charity cause.
I think that's beautiful. That is really beautiful, mashallah. I think it's amazing that you are able to, you know, give something like that in that manner. You know, and I think, you know, mashallah, if we could all get some kind of an opportunity like that. But I think what's amazing there is that you've quite clearly sort of shown how there's much greater differences in defining actually what charity is. And I think what I'm going to ask at this point really is my next question, and I'm going to start with you, Aisha, actually, because I think it's pertinent to what you were talking about, and that is that do you think that, well, financial charity requests, we're now getting this charity fatigue, and almost we're not doing enough to define or elaborate more on giving these other aspects of charity, like you've just spoken about giving to this sister who had nobody around her and she had 48 hours left to live, or certainly those people who are poverty stricken. You know, what do you think in that aspect?
Yeah, so what I feel is that charity does not have to be a solitary affair or donations of big amounts of money. And one of the things that, again, I'll go back to my Syria collection example, where we have organized collections for Syria over the years. It's become more like a social event in a sense, where the local brothers and sisters always look forward to coming to drop off stuff at our place. But not only that, my in-laws, my husband, my children actually enjoy welcoming people, opening the doors, taking the stuff. So it's more about, like, nobody is tired of coming to drop off at my house, just because it doesn't feel like charity. It's more like a social event we've created in a sense. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of good that has come out of that. So we've managed to organize things like coffee mornings, where we do other charitable acts while we are in the coffee morning. So try and do a collection for somebody else, or try and organize a visit to a sick sister. And the whole idea of charity fatigue is just because of the concept people have. If we try and change that to making it like more of a social event or a community event and get people involved, I think we'll probably win on that case, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Just to sort of elaborate on a little bit more about the Syria collection again. It's one of those things where when we start a Syria collection group, it was minimal. And then we created a WhatsApp group. But because of that WhatsApp group, a lot of other good causes have come out of it, alhamdulillah, as well. So these are little steps we've taken, but eventually got to a point where a lot is happening, subhanallah.
Oh, Jazakallah. And you really explained that in great detail. And inshallah, hopefully we'll give you a bit more of an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the Syria project further along in the show. Asad, what do you think in terms of, charity fatigue, and maybe a little bit about what we've been talking about here, about the differences in charity?
I think if you're referring to the stuff that we were talking about earlier, those sort of charities, I think, yeah, giving monetary donations, people are possibly fatigued, and that might not necessarily equate to a decrease in the amount of donations. It might just be that people will see the cause and just donate to it, be disassociated from it, as Dr. Dean said, and just say, okay, what is it you want? You want money? Well, here you go. Not even caring, who is it going to? Let's say it's for Syria. What project are you establishing? Wells? Are you establishing houses? Are you providing clothing? So I think that does exist. But personally, I always go back to a bayan I heard, and I can't even remember who gave this bayan, and they said that of all the doors of Jannah, like there's humility and salah, and there's one that's for charity. And I always imagine in my head that is the one that I could possibly go through, because I'm just so terrible at routine, but when it comes to charity, I just feel like, alhamdulillah, whatever I have, Allah gave me, so I can give it.
I mean.
Yeah, so I feel like that's almost like a sneaky backdoor into Jannah. So I personally haven't come across charity fatigue myself.
I might be joining you through that door, Asad, inshallah.
Inshallah, why not? I heard some of the other doors are going to be empty because they're that difficult. So whenever I come across a cause and it is within my means to assist, not necessarily monetarily, but if it's like giving your time, like Sister Aisha said, going to visit someone when they're sick, going to visit someone if they're incarcerated and nobody's visiting them, going to give a company to a new Muslim who might lack a social circle because they've been dropped in that sense, somebody new that's come into the country. I never find it hard to say no to these sort of things, because I always have that in the back of my head, that this is your way, Asad. This is how you're going to get Jannah. You've not read enough Tahajjud. You probably missed too much Farad. You're not a Hafiz of Quran. You're going to get into charity. So wherever you can, go do it.
I think that's a great attitude to have. Mashallah, that's beautiful. And I think that, I'll be joining you as well. Definitely. I like the sound of that one as well. But I was going to say that, a little bit about what you talked about there. In the sense that, do you think, I know you've really connected with it in that way, which is a really great way and a great mindset to have. But do you feel that others have maybe got a compassionate disconnect with what you're talking about? Where you mentioned about where you might just, give the money. It doesn't matter where the charity is. Somebody's asking you that you give it. If you've got it, you give it. It's not really, you don't have that sort of feeling in your heart anymore. Do you think it's become almost like a routine thing? And we now almost need to kind of reignite that flame?
Well, yeah, I kind of deal with quite a few charities, and I have noticed a lot more local charities being set up that not specifically deal with local causes, but abroad. I don't know if you guys have come across that, where you guys are, where like maybe a group of brothers, group of friends have come together and said, let's go and help out somewhere, let's say a refugee camp, or help out in a natural disaster, and they set it up on their own accord, and they register with Charities Commission, and they collect a healthy sum, and they go out themselves and they invite local volunteers to join them, and they all go make a kind of like a yearly trip of it. They set up orphanages. I've come across that a lot more in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years than I've ever come across before. Before it was like you had like maybe Uncle G set up an eye hospital in his local village, but he was like 70 years old or 60 years old or something, and he was retired, didn't have anything to do, so he just went, I'm going to set up an eye clinic. But there's guys our age, I'm about 42. I'm not precious about that, by the way.
Still a youngster, don't worry.
there's young guys, like, we're talking in 25, you know, university age, and they've got plans to set things up, charities abroad. I've come across that a lot recently. I think that's amazing, and I think that is closer to the Sunnah than, you know, typing in your credit card details.
Yeah, so we're still in the infancy of our masjid. So Al-Emaan Centre sort of inception was sort of 4 to 5 years ago. So we're still sort of at ground level trying to build things up. But the things that you spoke about, you know, projects overseas, I mean, I'm sure in the back of all our minds, it's something we'd love to do. But we're still sort of, you know, charity commission and getting people to come to the masjid activities, paying off the hasana, that type of thing. So that's part of the reason for the topic, that, you know, there's charity starts at home, there's charity within the community, charity at local level, charity at the masjid. It feels as though we need to get through those steps before we can sort of branch out. But we've sort of transgressed the next question, actually, which was sort of, what can we do to solve the charity fatigue? And we've touched upon it, you know, Aisha Asad as well have sort of mentioned other things we can do. Kamran, I mean, I know this is your sort of burning passion, so just hit us with what we can do to solve.
I love what Brother Asad said and Sister Aisha about charity is not just about money, but I'm going to give you a real simple solution to charity that I'm working on right now. And if anyone wants to volunteer, please put your email address down. I do need somebody, just a bit of time. And the thing is, it costs nothing. It's completely free, but it can have a huge impact. So what it is, I found a lot of students, they don't want the student debt. They don't want to go to uni. Some of them because of the interest, some for other reasons. And some kids just don't get the chance in really deprived areas where there's low attainment at school. Schools are not of high standards, and they just don't get to uni. And so we thought of a project where getting youth into the next fourth industrial revolution, i.e. the IT space, so cloud engineering and software development, all of that. Now, all of those IT fields, they're very simple courses. You don't need a degree, and you can earn crazy amounts of money. You know, up to 100K contracting is normal. So what I thought was, we can get volunteers to just create a guide of where, because people don't know where to go. So where are these courses? How much do they cost? How long do they take? And here you go, here's your career into IT, you know, and I'm talking about kids where they live in council estates, the mum can't even pay the rent, single mum, and it will transform their lives. So this is charity, but there's no donation needed. And there's projects like that that can really make a huge difference. You're not taking your giving, and it's not costing anything. You're guiding them towards a new career, which will change their lives from a minimum wage job to, you know, £500 a day contracting one day. It's a complete,
inshallah.
And that's what we're trying to do. So that's charity that we can do today, and there's no money involved. So
that's amazing.
If you want to get involved with that, please.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's reality. I mean, of course, that's my forte is technology, and I can completely resonate with that. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's really wonderful if people could, you know, get more involved in that kind of industry. I mean, we have you know, we don't have enough.
So Kamran, just that one word that I was looking for earlier on when I said, how can we rebrand charity? I think you found it. It's transformation, right? So if we, that's what I'm saying about that charity. It's kind of like, I've got to clean out the wardrobe, or I've got to, you know, get my checkbook out. We've got to stop thinking like that. So transformation, I like that. So us, we're talking about rebranding. There it is. We've got it. Transformation.
It's fantastic. I think it's a really, really great, great definition of it, and actually a really great word. And you know, I think moving forward in terms of the discussions, I thought it'd be a great way of us, you know, switching to the almost going back to the roots a little bit. You know, I wanted to ask everyone a little bit about, you know, we've talked about how to solve it, you know, defining what charity is, and, you know, about, you know, charity fatigue. But what about the traditions of charity from an Islamic point of view? And, you know, when we talk about Quran and Hadith, you know, there's quite a significant amount of charity that's described in it. I mean, some of my favorite ayats come from, you know, about charity, and I'm just going to read one that I really like, because I'm not going to sort of go too deep into it, but see if I can find it. So, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in the Quran, it's in Surah Baqarah, and he talks about that those who give charity is, if I can find the exact words, because I want to be correct. Yeah, so the charity of those who expand their wealth in the way of Allah uh, may be likened to a grain of corn, which produces 7 ears, and each ear yields 100 grains. Likewise, Allah develops manifold the charity of anyone He pleases, for He is all-embracing and all-wise. Now, for me, I find that really amazing. You know, that when you give any kind of charity, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is going to take that, and He's going to, you know, expand your wealth and do so much with it. But often I have felt, and I don't know if you guys feel this way, is that there seems to be quite a disconnect with the Quran and the Hadith, and we tend to hear a lot of these kinds of things, you know, whether it's on the mimbar or whether it's on, you know, ulama talking about it in talks. It doesn't necessarily penetrate our hearts in the same way as maybe either it should or it used to the point where we're sort of not necessarily seeing the real benefits of it in the same way as we might necessarily see the benefits of going to university or going to work or waking up in the morning and struggling to still get on the train and so on and so forth. So my question really is there still that connection, and how do people feel when they hear the traditions of charity through Quran and Hadith? I said maybe you might want to talk about this.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying, Brother Khalid. Is charity becoming almost like a consumerism type commodity? Do we feel as though like charities are selling to us like a product, as opposed to us feeling as though, you know, we're doing something fi sabilillah? You know, it's almost like we are picking and choosing. Brother, I think it was Kamran, mentioned about a charity that's very popular with the youth. It's almost like they've branded themselves, hasn't it? Like Coca-Cola. Am I allowed to say that? Like, you know, like a big company would, right? I feel that's happening a lot, and this is why I actually like the smaller local charities set up by local brothers, because I think, I mean, it's hard to judge people's intentions, but I feel they're more genuine. You know, there's a lot more people doing, they say, oh, we're 100% donation policy because we're all doing the admin for free.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like that is the spirit of Islam, as opposed to big billboards, big posters, you know, big campaigns, multi-million-dollar campaigns, incidentally. And then with that comes a politics, which I don't know if you guys have come across it, but all the big charities, there's a lot of shaming, mudslinging that goes on with them. It just doesn't feel like the spirit of Islam to me. Whereas the smaller charities, they are much more cooperative, much more inclusive. They're not bothered who you're affiliated with. They're happy to work with you. Whereas the bigger charities, they'll go, oh, you're working with that person, well, we can't really work with you, you know, unless you sign this declaration form, etc., etc. I mean, I had some dealings with a few of the big charities, and some of their conditions were crazy, you know, because as Dental Aid Network, we partner up with charities sometimes.
Yeah.
And some of them had crazy conditions, crazy demands, and that did not feel like the spirit of Islam to me. It did not feel like this was Quran and Sunnah to me. Additionally, I had meetings with some of the top executives from some of the top charities, like the top charities. And what they were saying, it sounded business to me. It did not sound charity to me. So yeah, I think I get what you're saying. How can we reconnect? I'd say, you know, like be the giving hand, you know, like be that person that gives directly. You know, if you hear of a cause, go directly. There's nothing stopping us, like going to the borders of Turkey and giving to Syrian refugees, going to the refugee camps in Jordan and Greece, going to, well, there might be some impediment going to Bangladesh these days, but you can still try, you know, you can go and be that giving hand. arguably, on the flip side, you could say, instead of spending what £500 on a plane ticket, just give that to somebody that will then take it over there for you. But yeah, possibly that's a solution. I don't know what the other brothers think.
Yeah, no, it's a great angle to it, I think, and yes, you know, I also agree with you that the commercialization has almost created that disconnect, and trying to find your way back to the roots of what the Quran, Hadith, and Sunnah talks about in terms of charities is definitely somewhere to go. I mean, I think I'm going to hand the question over to Aisha now before I go to Brother Kamran to finish up. I mean, I just want to know, Aisha, how do you feel? I know you guys, your whole family does a great job in terms of charity. Do you feel quite connected with the definitions that you see in the Quran and Hadith?
Yeah, so I just feel that charity complements beliefs. If you understand what the Quran and the Hadith say about charity and you do it with the right intention, go back to basics and start it simple with the intention that you're doing it to please Allah and to help people, then yes, you are, I mean, you want to do it yourself rather than, as Brother Asad said, handing it over to somebody. And there is more connection in doing that. There is more there's like a tangibility in a sense which you achieve, which you don't achieve by donating online 500 or £1,000 to some charity. And it really things, hadith from the Quran or hadith from the Prophet ﷺ and the verses from the Quran inspire me into doing even simple everyday things like smiling, which I enjoy doing anyway, but I know that I'm getting a reward for it. For those people who know me probably realize I'm smiling all the time. But also little things like cooking for my family or dressing up for my husband. These are all acts of charity for me. And I just feel like if we go back to the basics and understand these little things, inshallah, and then have the intention to do something more for the sort of world at large, you will get there, inshallah.
Inshallah.
But
And I
yeah.
was going to actually sort of angle something in, like, you know, you seem to be very connected with it. So how do we get the new generation to connect with it in the same way? Do you think that there's something that we can do different, or do you think they are quite connected with it?
I don't think they are, unfortunately, I don't think they are connected. And whether it's the generation or whether it's the approach, I'm not sure. But one of the things that I found, which sort of helped me get into it, was the fact that maybe I may have been exposed to it myself when I was growing up. So, subhanAllah, my parents used to encourage us to do little things like giving a passing child a glass of cold water on a hot day in Mombasa. And I just find that by giving these examples to my children, and in terms of the Syria collection itself, involving the whole family, does seem to sort of pass that message on in a better way. Yes, we do have quotations from the Quran. We do encourage them to read the Hadith, but physically showing them certain things and doing it with them, inshallah, helps them as well.
Inshallah, inshallah. Kamran, how about you? Do you want to expand on it a bit?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question actually, to make it a bit more interactive. What do you think was last year's figure for charity donations around the world, collectively as a human race?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I don't know. $1 trillion, maybe?
Yeah, some estimates are $500 billion, but collectively since the 60s, trillions of dollars in today's money has gone to Africa. Yeah, Africa's where it is pretty much. And you don't solve problems by symptom treatment. You don't solve problems by just feeding people. You solve them by building good governance, legacy work. And this is what it's all about. When we're helping youth, we need to think about a whole generation. And same with charity, we need to think about doing projects that are self-sustaining. It's not like some people had been to Africa and they had set up a school and a hospital. There was no local buy-in and it just became derelict and the money was wasted. We need to do things where people are involved and the money isn't wasted. So somebody was asking a question of commercialization, like Brother Asad said, and absolutely, if you're going to raise 10 million and 3 million is going to remain in the UK for your office and admin expenses, you got to think, is that what we really want? You know, yes, you may think that's okay, but I personally don't. You know, there needs to be a limit on that. But that's what happens when you get really big and you have a capitalist sort of model of operation. So going back to the amount of money that goes into things, but it doesn't really impact, is because we're not doing work that is, like we said, transformational. It's transactional, but not transformational. So it's here's a bag of rice, here's a tent, 10 tents, put your hands up, fine. But the tent will go, the bag of rice will go. But if we don't build agriculture for these people, good governance with governments, youth are not on strong and proud to be Muslim and add value to society. Charity is just, what is it then? You know, we keep throwing money at a problem. That's all we're doing. So let's think about legacy and how that, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, where Medina at the time the Prophet was passing away is not wealthy, but man, what kind of people were they? You know, they end up in China and Spain and build Muslim Spain and the great civilization, which is the reason we have the Renaissance in Europe. So this all comes from building people, not from just bags of rice.
Jazakallah khair, Kamran. Just on that, I'd like to segue into Imam Abdullah, who is one of the Imams at Al-Emaan Center, and is a zakat expert and often champions the policy of building communities, building people rather than buildings, as Dr. Dean mentioned. So, Sheikh, if you're on the line, could I invite you in to join the discussion and just throw your comments in.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. Maybe a bit louder, Sheikh.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I've been listening. Alhamdulillah, all the points the brothers and sisters have made are very, very useful and valuable. I don't disagree with them. Some of the points mentioned about charity in the UK or charities becoming, you know, we live in a consumer society, and what happens in our society, in our culture, affects our own psyche. So sometimes we can't really get away from that. We have to try and mitigate to the best of our ability those kind of vices, if you like, within the charity sector. I just want to make a few points, and just quickly. I don't have much time, obviously. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with anything the brothers and sisters have mentioned. I agree with everything, but looking at some of the points discussed from a different angle. I've been working in the charity sector full-time for a long time now. As a zakat expert, working in fundraising, working in different areas, building people, developing projects. There are a lot of concerns within the Muslim community about charities and how they function, but there are also positives about the charity work that many charities do. Some of the points that we mentioned, number one, you know, individuals setting up charities and whatnot, they were fine, but if you look at in the long term, it's not necessarily always the best thing to do. So, for example, even the major charity in the UK, for example, like Oxfam, for example, they have a lot of campaigns for people to give clothes. I'll give you a couple of really simple, basic examples, right? And there are shops opening up now, even by Muslim charities, you know, people to donate clothes. That's not necessarily a good thing to do. Because what it does is that we provide tons and tons of clothing from the UK, from the West to the third world countries, and sometimes in certain areas they're not, clothes are just left in storehouses, warehouses. And what happens is that the local economy is not moving. Why? Because if you transport food or clothing or other items from other countries, then you're not driving the local economy. And what happens in the long run, in the local economy, the shops and the malls and whatnot, they get out of business. So in our good intention to do good, sometimes we also do bad. And there are so many other examples that can be given. You know, the non-Muslim charity sector in the UK for the last 60, 70 years, they've learned a lot. They've learned amazing, and there are a lot of books out there, a lot of studies out there. Unfortunately, what is happening within the Muslim charity sector, we're not learning from the mistakes of the non-Muslim charity sector. We're doing the same thing that some of them were doing and making those sort of mistakes. That's number one. Number two, I think, you know, from the Islamic perspective, even the smile, as the brothers mentioned, even a smile is sadaqah, is a form of charity. Anything that we do for the sake of Allah is a form of charity. You know, being with our spouse is a form of charity. The idea about not having 100% donation policy. Any charity that claims that, either they don't know what they're talking about, or they are misleading people. There's no you cannot do 100% donation. There's no way, right? Charity Commission will not allow it. The tax system will not allow it. So it's a marketing gimmick, in my opinion, right? So it's a competition between the charity. Unfortunately, it becomes a capitalist system, and it becomes a competition, right? So I think we just have to be authentic, transparent with people, how we market. The final point, there's so many points that come to my mind, I can mention, but the final point is that, we do need people who are who have the knowledge, the experience within the charity sector. It is, having worked in the charity sector for a long time now, is very, very difficult to get people to donate money. It's very, very difficult. If you say to we want to develop a project, develop people, donate, right? You want to educate the youth, it's very, very difficult for people to understand the long-term benefits of that, right? So education needs to be provided. Whereas if you have a video or image of a poor person from a third world country, right, the emotional effect comes into place, and people donate. So I think the final point is that sadaqah or zakah it has to be done hand in hand with tawheed, with iman. All of the 5 pillars, they have to work hand in hand. And I think Brother Kamran, he mentioned an important point, that the elder generation within the Muslim community, they would give because they were cultured in that understanding from an Islamic perspective, right? The younger generation, the professionals, right, they are less likely to give and that is why the charities, they are having to think outside the box, right, for them to for them to donate or even give zakah, which is obligation upon them, right? So what we need to do as a society, as a collective, is not only talk about charity in isolation. We have to talk about building people's iman, developing people's iman, faith. Because without faith, there is no reason for people to give charity. Otherwise, it will become like the non-Muslims. We just give charity for the sake of charity. But it has to be coupled with the education programs we do from the mosque, for example, or even the charity. And that's one of the my big issues with many of the charities, that they don't invest enough in development, right? People development. They don't invest enough in research and development and building that side. It's all about taking money and just dropping money, and just dropping money is not the answer, right? You have to have a strategy, you have to have a vision, and that's something that I think is missing from the charity. It's not very difficult to do, to be honest, right? But the charities are giving too much focus on the business side, right, rather than the spiritual and the religious impact of charity. Sorry, I took too much of your time.
No, not Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Always for your input is always beneficial. So you mentioned sort of what Brother Khalik had spoken about earlier, is the concern, the genuine concern, the softening of the heart, where the true sort of charity comes from, and perhaps the sort of commercial aspect to charity has sort of hardened people's hearts, and you kind of dissociate yourself from writing that check or giving that donation. And so I completely agree with your comments, and I think they've been echoed by everyone on the discussion group. I think that the sort of final question, really, to try and, I guess, conclude the meeting, but perhaps drill down into solutions, is to sort of ask how do we see the future of humanitarianism or charity work in our communities, and everyone that's spoken so far has experience of that. So I know it's a big question, but everyone's going to answer it anyway. So Kamran, can you start us off?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, and thank you, Brother Abdullah, for your insights. As I mentioned, the youth question, they're very different to us in the mindset, as we know, as you've seen, that they are very British in every way, culturally and mindset-wise as well. So their ideas of charity are very westernized. So adapting to that and also getting buy-in to Muslim, because what I'm finding, a lot of the youth, they want to now donate to mainstream charities, and they're happy to do that just as much as they would to Muslim charities. The old generation would have just been Muslim charities. So that's what I'm seeing change, and also not buying into certain brands anymore. So it's all about branding. So what we need to look at is there's a generation that believes in brands. You know, our youth are on their phones buying things all the time. So they're a brand generation. And how do you brand Islam now? And that's what I keep talking about. Even Islam has to be branded now because they don't get it. You know, the majority don't get it. Let's face it. So it's all about looking at what does charity mean to them? What's in it for me is what I'm going to talk. The youth need to have something in it for them. They need to be able to, I'll give you one quick example, then I'm going to be quiet because I talk too much. We had some youth. I had a young man go to Bangladesh with his family, first time in his life. And he was shocked at the poverty in Bangladesh. He just couldn't believe that their people were beggars and all that, people with no hands and arms and people on the floor. He said, I'll never go back there. I just couldn't handle the dirt and the poverty. And that's what happens when we create a disconnect between our youth and the world that's suffering, you know, with all this injustice around the world. And unless you take your kids regularly to a developing country, you're not going to get that atmosphere from them. They're just going to go to restaurants and spend £40 on desserts and not donate £20 to charity and £20 to desserts. It's just the way the current generation is. So I can tell you what the youth are up to, and it doesn't look good unless we do something about it. So let's work on that.
I was going to say, I like where you're coming from there, but I mean, and as Amri alluded to a little bit, that in previous discussions, I talked about the word fikr or concern. How do we ignite that? Because like you said, that these guys are taking things on face value, and the benefit of, say, charity or what we're talking about is in the akhirah, in the reality, right? I mean, what we're saying is that we don't see the benefits now, so we don't really connect with it. We have to brand Islam now. But how do we actually do that? Give them that fikr in their hearts, or soften their hearts in that way? I mean, is it about literally branding it and, you know, throwing away that fikr and then just saying, well, look, it needs to have a tag to it, or a brand that, you know, is kind of, I don't know, you know, that they all can connect to? How does it work?
Just Dwight.
Yeah.
I wish we could. You're absolutely right. So in terms of the current generation, it's a part of the bigger concerns and the big issues that we have, and I have, is how do you brand? Because, you know, it's Avengers versus the Sahaba, isn't it? It's the same with charity. Is it a spiritual thing, or is it just something we do to feel good? British Heart Foundation, Cancer Research Marathon, or is it something about, you know, this is growing, I'm going to see it in Jannah on the Day of Judgment? For most youth, it's not that, because they don't get it, you know, they don't get the deen because we're not doing our job properly. But so it's part of a bigger struggle, and that's why I'm here and spending my whole life to make dua, please. That's what I'm trying to do. But inshallah, let's look at this concern for the next generation. And charities are concerned because they want money, they want funds, and they are concerned because they're losing a donation or donor base. So yeah, let's look at it from their viewpoint, and how we can. Unfortunately, I know we say, why should Islam be fun? But unfortunately, you know, there's a dopamine rush, social media generation, you know, and everything has to be exciting and fun for them. And that charity in particular, the one I was mentioning, which is getting donation, they do fun, crazy stuff that may not be particularly Islamic, but it works with the youth, you know. So what do we do? Do we compromise our deen for them? What do we do? I'm not saying do that, but do you see what I mean? There's the challenge. There's the question.
So can I put that to Asad now? What's your thoughts for the future?
Sorry, I was trying to find the mute button. I think is it Sheikh Abdullah Hassan? Yeah.
Yes.
What he said, I think, really resonates with me. Is that you cannot take charities separately. I think if you work on the Iman the Ummah, you work on the Islam, and you work on the Ihsan of the Ummah, then I think charity happens by itself. I know there's a lot of symptoms that we have talked about right now, but I think the diagnosis is a lack of Iman, and then Islam, and of course Ihsan all together. I think if you solve that, then I think you've cracked it. And I think this is the collective problem, collective question that all the ulama have been trying to crack for a long time, and there's various different approaches. But branding and these sort of things, they will help get charity donations, but I think the main cause is what Sheikh Abdullah Hassan hit on the head there, is it's just, unfortunately, we are at a lull right now. We're talking about Black Lives Matter, colorism, and these sort of things as a new concept, whereas this is obviously taught by Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So our youth are on board with that hashtag, as opposed to, hashtag Islam. Like, this is something that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam taught us, but we've not really managed to instill that in our youth. Perhaps this is something that our generation can instill in our youth, and then that can then get passed on and inshallah become stronger. But yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that you mentioned that, and I think Amir is probably smiling away there, because as I bang on about this all the time, we have to go back to the roots and really go back to sort of bringing that back into their hearts. But so they see you smiling away there. I'm going to let him talk.
No. I was saying knocking on people's door. That's what you're always banging on about. But no,
there's nothing wrong with that. Sunnah of the prophets.
So no, what you said earlier in the week when we were discussing what we might talk about today, I think summarized it quite well in terms of the future. Really is the sort of philanthropic change of mindset to help people help themselves, which I think Sheikh Abdullah said. There's no point, and Dr. Dean said, there's no point giving the bag of rice if you haven't given them agriculture. There's no point giving them clothes if they can't clothe themselves again once those clothes have gone. So it's really helping people to help themselves, and that can start in the family, grassroots, local youth, and then sort of wider afield.
I just say something here, brother. I mean, I also need to go. Is it Dr. Asad? Yeah. Again, your last comment is spot on, and I think in the last 2 years, I think Amir has attended a number of my khutbahs at Emaan Center, and I mean, in various different ways, I kind of like highlight this every single khutbah about building the people, about building individuals, right? If we can build Iman, faith, resilience in the hearts and minds of the people, everything becomes easy. And I'll give you one practical example. And this is not to say that we should not build mosques, and I mentioned to the brothers at Emaan Center, the committee, I said, look, there are many mosques that I kind of engaged. I've set up my own mosque also, but I don't give my money to every mosque, right? I don't give my time to every mosque, because I think mosques also have become a commercialized enterprise. Some mosques, not all mosques, right? But Emaan Center, alhamdulillah, is different. It's a vibrant kind of community, and it needs our support. An imam, not too long ago, he developed a movement, and that movement reached millions of people. But he was not focused on, I'm not going to mention the name of the imam, no need, but he was not focused on building institutions and building mosques and whatnot. There were other organizations or other people who were doing that. So some of his followers, they came to him, he said, yeah, Imam, why don't we build mosques? Why don't we build buildings? And other people are doing it. Why don't we do this? And he said that let others build the mosque, and we will bring the people to the mosque. Right? Let others build the mosque, we will bring the people to the mosque. Right? And that's the attitude I feel, that we need to have as individuals and as a collective. And one of the things I said to the brothers at Emaan Center, a couple of years ago, have a vision, have a 5, 10, 50-year vision, right? It only needs 3, 4 people if you have sincerity, if you have the right expertise and the right drive and enthusiasm, you only need a handful of people to create that movement in your own locality. During the time of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, when he was the president or the leader, he gathered some of the main, he gathered the companions together in a room, a small room, and he said to them, whatever you want, just make a wish, and it will come by. Some of the companions, they said, I wish that this room is filled with gold and silver and jewelry and whatnot. And from that he was slightly disappointed, and he said, look, what I wish that in this room there were more Sahaba, more men like Ubaydullah ibn Jarrah, more Sahaba like Ali ibn Abi Talib, more people like that, because they understood, and this is the student of An-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They understood that the most powerful concept, right, is ideas. When you instill in the hearts and minds of the young people, of anyone, right, this idea of Iman, everything else becomes easy. Everything else becomes, facilitated for us. This is what the Prophet understood. So I really think, if you want to talk about branding, let's brand Islam to the young people, right? Let's brand Iman, right, to the young people, that they understand that it's beneficial for them psychologically, physically, mentally. If we, those charities who are focusing on, branding Islam, they may get some money, and they are, right? But in the long term, I just feel, and from my short experience, I just feel that they will not succeed in the long term, right? Because they're focusing on short-term benefits. You do a campaign, you get the youth involved, but they're not doing, which is fine. This is something that I think we need to do, but they're not doing anything in educating the youth, in instilling in them Iman and faith. And that's where I think the focus, that's where the thing is. If you look at the Quran, brothers and sisters, right? The Quran and the Hadith, in every verse where it talks about intellect and understanding and tafaqquh and whatnot, Allah talks about the heart, right? It's not about the intellect, right? Intellect is there, the rationale is there, but Allah talks about the heart. You penetrate the heart, you instill Iman, love of God inside the hearts of the youth, everything else becomes easy. So a really, really important discussion. May Allah bless you for organizing this. I think I've learned a lot. Alhamdulillah. There are so many things that can be discussed. Books can be written about this. I myself actually have been, writing a book on charity in Islam and looking at some of the aspects that you guys have been talking about. So keep it up, inshallah. This is like having this discussion is a form of charity. You will be rewarded for it in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So
inshallah.
I want a signed copy of that book, Sheikh.
inshallah.
Me too.
So I just, Aisha, I don't want to, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, and I know you're in the rush. We'll speak tomorrow at Tafsir, inshallah. But
inshallah.
Aisha, I know
join us in the Tafsir class, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. Aisha, sorry to have left you behind a little bit, but the future for local charity, how do you see that?
Can I just start with a quick message to any of my Bromley and Croydon sisters who are listening here today? Mashallah, mashallah, your generosity has always been amazing, and inshallah, let's keep it going, okay? I'm amazed at how people, alhamdulillah, go all the way to contribute what they do, subhanallah. And I think, Amir, you probably know, if you've ever come to sort of drop off at the Syria collections, how much people can donate. So mashallah, we have it in us. And I would echo what Imam Abdullah and Brother Asad said in terms of sowing the seed in our children, really. I think parents and our local masajids have a very active role to play in educating the youth about these little things, and not only about giving in charity, but just instilling in them the benefits of doing that, inshallah, and how we will have the future in the akhirah, inshallah. It's lots of hadith, lots of Quranic verses which we can sort of teach them, sort of get them to implement on, inshallah. But I just feel like everything has been covered. It is just important for us as the parents, the masajids, the local communities to get together, come up with ways of educating the youth. That's the most important thing. And yeah, we should be able to get on with that.
Like Aisha, just let us know while you're here when the next drop-off is, because I'm ready, I'm packed.
Yeah, so inshallah, there is one planned either for this coming Thursday, which is the 17th, or the 24th. So I work usually with either One Nation or Muslims in Need, and depending on when their drivers are available to pick it up and they confirm with me, we then organize it. We have been organizing it a slightly different format from what we used to do before the COVID outbreak. So it's a one-day collection on Thursday, inshallah.
No, and I've witnessed Aisha's house with the drop-off. It's quite something to be seen. There's literally floor to ceiling parcels. Mashallah, it's an amazing thing. And like Aisha said, something for the kids to see, and drop-offs become an event in itself. So
Mashallah. I was going to say, Aisha, let us know what, do you want to plug in what you actually need or what you're collecting at the moment?
So usually what we sort of ask for is food, so tinned foods, long life food, medical supplies, so things like walking sticks, frames, plasters, bandages, any winter clothing, blankets, jackets, gloves, scarves, shoes. And subhanAllah, we have also had the opportunity to provide for a nursery in the recent years. I think it's called Lulu Al Marjan in Idlib. And so we collect toys for that nursery, alhamdulillah. So any of those things are always welcome.
Mashallah. Now you've asked, now that's what's going to happen. Now 3/4 of my house is going to turn up at your place with toys.
That's fine, that's fine. One thing I wanted to say, which we haven't touched upon actually so much, is this idea of supporting local. So, I mean, I grew up in Coventry, bless it, but I always supported Liverpool Football Club because my best friend did, and I still do. And now I'm feeling slightly guilty that I don't support Crystal Palace or even Bromley FC. And then, you know, I experienced this during Ramadan, and Khalik will know because we did it every day pretty much, trying to get people to tune in to our events when, you know, Yasser Qadi's doing his thing and Al-Emaan's doing his thing, and, you know, there's a lot of competition out there. So, you know, is there a feeling that we should support local, or is it every man for himself? And then it comes back to this charitable feeling of concern. Is the concern local, or is the concern global, and which way round is it? Kamran.
Sorry, what's just the end bit of your question, brother?
So, yeah, I gave the analogy of supporting your local team rather than Manchester United or Liverpool, and whether we should be channeling our efforts into supporting local projects rather than sort of bigger projects.
Yeah. I think we shouldn't deny the crisis is around the world also, but definitely we have to focus close to home, because that's our Islamic duty as well. The Prophet walks out of his house and he helps people every day, you know. So absolutely. So it's something we've got to do local, adding value, and also if you look at it, you know, as we are British Muslims, and the image that we have due to all the negative media and that isn't very good, and we can really add, but we shouldn't do charity for the image, purely for the reward. But in terms of like that, you know, the bit we're talking about with the youth and getting them to understand, appreciate charity, I think spirituality is really key there. And that's one of the, away from materialism towards spirituality, because once you've got it spiritually, you really understand charity and you really give more than you ever thought you would, because you've got that spiritual understanding of what the value of it is, rather than just, you know, give, but I'm tired of giving. But if I give, I'm going to get more back, which you cannot measure in science. You know, you can't measure when Allah does, you know, you donate and then you get a check the next day that you didn't expect. But that you can't quantify, you know, science can't prove that. But we know it's true. And that spirituality you need to embed in children really young, you know, and that's part of the solution. The spiritual connection has to be there, inshallah.
Amazing, Jazakallah. I said the future of community projects, local versus global.
I think you need to have both. You need to give people that option. At the end of the day, when we are giving people local options and international options, we're not doing it for their sake, we're doing it for our own sake, we're doing it for our own akhirah. At the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will get that rizq to whoever is going to get that rizq, whether it's through us or whether it's through somebody else, they're going to get that. It's our own akhirah that we're making. So we should be making as much effort as we can make. If it is within my capabilities to work on something locally, I'll do that. If it's my capabilities to do something internationally, I will do that. If I can't do either of them, then I will give from my time. If I can't do that, I will just spare my thoughts and du'as for these people. So we give as much as we can give, and it's not for the people that we're giving it to, it's for ourselves, to the point that when we actually give charity, we should say thanks to the people that we are able to give it to, because they're the ones that are going to give us that rewards, alhamdulillah, that we used our time, used our energy, we used our money, and we gave it to, spent it in the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted us to spend it. So I don't think it's a case of one or the other. We should just do what we can do and put no limits on it.
So I can still support Liverpool, that's fine.
Yeah, well done. A belated congratulations to you.
Thank you. So while you're still on the mic, I said, I mean, we'll sort of be doing the closing comments soon. So can you plug your sort of current activities? Is there anything we could do from
our activities are pretty much at a standstill in relation to Dental Aid Network. All our projects, we were supposed to go to Uganda, which was a new mission this year. We were meant to go back to the West Bank of Palestine. We were meant to go to Kashmir in October, Jordan in August. It's all been cancelled, but inshallah, Allah reward us for the intention and the planning and the work the brothers had put into that. Other than that, we're concentrating on local efforts through Glasgow Central Mosque. It's a very progressive masjid. It's not without its issues, but alhamdulillah, there's like a mixture of youngsters and older people, and I think that the concept of succession is slowly being digested by some of the older community as a jagged pill to swallow, but they're managing to get it down. It's still stuck in the throat somewhere, but hopefully they will be able to train other youngsters into developing what Brother Dean has talked about. Dr. Dean, this entire program is about how to engage the youth, and part of that is through getting them interested in things that they would usually do and bringing that into the masjid. But yeah, I think alhamdulillah, I think every community needs to do what it can do, and I think inshallah, with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will get through this lockdown.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. I was going to say that you'd have to invite me along. I don't mind holding your tools while you're touring around with helping the people. Yeah.
We get a lot of offers of people saying we'll just write stuff down for you. Can we just come to Palestine? Can we come to Gambia? We're like, thanks for your offer. But yeah, we'll bear that in mind, Khalik.
Absolutely. If nothing else, give my salam to Dr. Sadiq anyway.
Wa alaikum assalam. I'll pass that on.
So Kamran, so we're just sort of in closing comments now. So would you like to give a little bit about your current situation with Youth Solutions?
Yeah, so we're always working on quite a few projects. One is the IT project. If anyone can get involved with that, it's just summarizing where youth can go to get onto that career ladder. So if anyone wants to give their time, that's all they need to give is time. I think 2-3 days of admin work and it'll be done. So if somebody can help with that. Other than that, as you know, the other projects involved with creating workshops on mental health, delivering those workshops. So we'll be looking for people in the future. I'm starting a podcast series next month, and we'll start ironing out all those issues over 10 years that I've learned and experienced in parenting and youth. So it's Dr. Dean's Real Talk on YouTube, and it'll be on other iTunes and stuff. So that'll be that. Yeah, so that's it. So type in Dr. Dean Google, you should find it somewhere. So Dr. Dean TV, and I'll see you inshallah. Thank you.
You could put it in the chat if you can.
Yeah, inshallah.
Do that for me. Aisha, some closing comments and current activities. I know you've talked about the Syria project. Is there anything else you wanted to add about the the Marylebone refugees or the homeless?
Yeah, so mashallah, alhamdulillah, we got an opportunity to start working on the Marylebone project. Basically, it's like a women's shelter home where it houses about 112 women and then 70 or 80 walk-ins. And subhanallah, during Eid al-Adha, we decided that we wanted to provide a cooked hot meal for these women. One of the things about the shelter is it's not Muslim women only, it's Muslim and non-Muslim. So I wasn't sure how to go about it. But again, when I approached the Bromley sisters, everybody was willing. And instead of one day, we managed to provide 2 days of cooked meals during Eid times. And after following that, the interest has been so good that we've decided to do it on a regular basis. So the next food, handing over the cooked food to the project will be on the 19th of September, inshallah. So if anybody's interested, they can contact us. But what we are trying to do is make it a once or twice a month hot cooked meal, because I was talking to the manager and they do get a lot of pastries, croissants from supermarkets, but they don't seem to have hot food as much as they would like to. So they would appreciate that, inshallah.
Inshallah, Jazakallah khair, Aisha. So we're pretty much coming to an end now. It's sort of shot by, and it's been really, really useful discussion. I sort of anticipated it would be quite colourful with the guests that we invited. So thank you to Dr. Asad from Glasgow. Thank you to Dr. Dean, as per usual. Hopefully seeing you soon at some point. Thank you to Aisha, giving us the local scene, local lowdown, and obviously Khalik as well. Just a quick mention, Al-Emaan Centre is now open. Well, I say is now open, has been open the last couple of weeks for Daily Salah, although it's been restricted a little bit. We've been doing Jummah through Eventbrite, and I personally sort of volunteered for that on Friday, and it was really, really smooth. Felt very safe. Obviously, we need to be very vigilant with the new guidelines and changes. So look out for any updates from the Al-Emaan Centre broadcast. But Jazakallah khair for all the participants, everyone joining. Sheikh Abdullah, thank you for your input as well. Brother Khalik, can I hand you the mic and ask you to close with a dua?
Yeah, absolutely, inshallah. And I was going to add to that and echo what you said. I mean, it's been a fantastic session. I really appreciate everyone's input and some fantastic guests, and special thanks to Amir and everyone else who's been involved. So inshallah, I hope to see you guys in the next Sheikhs breaks. And we can't end without plugging the masjid and say, you know, if you guys have got something to give, please do. Masjid, obviously, like Amrit's mentioned, that it's recently opened up, but with limited capacity. So website is there. Just go there. All the various channels are there. Please donate generously. You know, everything that you can give. If not, then a dua at least. And I'm going to end at that point. Jazakallah khair.
Khalik, sorry, can I, you know, my tradition is to interrupt you. So I was just, before you close with a dua, I just was flicking through the chat. So there's been some healthy discussion even on the chat. So I don't want to miss any of that out. So there was a question about helping refugees in the locality. We have been engaging through the Bromley Three Faiths group with the Lewisham refugees, and so there is a relationship there. If anyone wants to get involved, I know Sister Asma and Sister Hina were helping with teaching English and also supplies. But certainly, if anyone wants to sort of get involved with that, do contact the masjid, and we can hook you up. There was, sorry, Avais, you want to come on quickly? I'm sorry, I left you out. Quickly before Khalik does the dua, I couldn't not bring you on. Avais, you still there? He's probably putting the kids to bed.
Yeah, I think he might have departed by now. Let me see.
I feel bad. Oh, so Avais, bless him, a very active brother, Al-Emaan, was involved in the food bank, or set up the food bank with the help of Brother Suleiman. which obviously went quiet during COVID. So we're looking at perhaps restarting that, but has also behind the scenes, actually not so much behind the scenes, quite in front of the scenes, been developing a community cookbook. And so just wanted to plug that. Hopefully that's coming along nicely now. There's plenty of recipes, some mouth-watering morsels to be had once that book is out. So Always get your skates on and get it published. That's all.
Yeah, and food from all over the world as well, recipes from all over the world, which is fantastic, you know.
Okay, so I think we're done, Khalik. I won't interrupt you again. You go.
Okay, well, Jazakallah khair, everyone. And, you know, please do remember us in your du'as. I'm going to end with a very short dua. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Ya Allah, please bless all of those who have attended and all of those who took out their time to participate in this really important discussion. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please help us in giving charity both within and to everyone around us locally and globally. I mean, Ya Allah, please bless the Masjid Al-Emaan Center and all those who have participated and who have helped to bring this along and make it fruitful. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please help all of the various different members of the panel today with their various charities and their various efforts in helping the communities and helping our ummah. I mean, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please help us with this current circumstances within COVID and where the numbers are now increasing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please protect us and our communities and our loved ones. آمين رب العالمين آمين رب العالمين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you guys. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair, everyone. Thank you for joining. See you next time, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.